welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're heading back to the slasher film territory. But before we head there, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. And as always, a shameless plug for our TeePublic page. I'll leave a link in the description box below. And today we're heading back to 1989, folks, and Brad Pitt's first feature film, Cutting Class. Yes, this film came out July 17th of 1989, although it didn't go to theaters, although in some territories it did, from what they say in the documentary on here, on this pretty cool Blu-ray from MVD Video, but it didn't get a wide theatrical release. It pretty much went direct to video. July 17th, 1989, it's rated R, it's an hour and 31 minutes long. I couldn't find a budget on this bad boy, so we're just going to get into this. This was directed, the only directorial movie by Rospo Pallenberg. He was mostly a writer in Hollywood. He had written Excalibur for John Boorman. He also did some work with John Boorman on Deliverance, and he wrote a few other projects. And he got his shot to direct here, this little slasher film, whodunit slasher film from the 80s. In this film, we got Donovan Leck as Brian. He was just coming off of another horror film the year before in the remake, the excellent remake of The Blob. Also in this film is Jill Sholin, who's no stranger to horror, and she plays Paula, and she was in The Stepfather before this. She would go on to do The Phantom of the Opera with Robert Englund in the same year that came out, and then she would go on to do Popcorn, which I'm going to re-review coming up soon on the channel the next few months. And yeah, she was a scream queen for a time, and she's in this film as well. Also, Brad Pitt plays Dwight. This is his first theatrical film. The great Roddy McDowall plays Mr. Dante, the school principal. Also, Dwight and Paula are boyfriend and girlfriend in this film. And also, Martin Mullins in this film, and he plays William, a district court judge, but also he's Paula's father in this film, and he was in a ton. Look at his IMDb page. He's been in a ton of stuff. But mostly what I remember him for is he was Colonel Mustard in Clue, which he's fabulous in that movie, along with the whole rest of the cast. And he was also in Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton as well. He played his wife's boss in that film. And this film is pretty much straight up pure 80s slasher film, although it does dive into the absurd and comedic at times as well. And I actually do think in this film it was intentional. And pretty much Paula is going to be alone for the weekend. For a week, actually. Her dad's actually taking some time off from being a judge, and he's going off hunting. Although she even says in the film he's not a very good hunter. So she's going to be alone, and he keeps telling her, I don't want you cutting any class. Paula's a good student and a good daughter, and he just wants her to do well in school. And that is pretty much the setup. We're introduced to Dwight, Brad Pitt, who spends a lot of time on, as a matter of fact, right after this film came out, him and Jill Sholin were engaged for a short time. Obviously, they didn't get married, but they were engaged. This is where they met. But Brian is back at school, and we find out that Brian supposedly killed his father, which there was never any proof of, and he went off to an insane asylum for a time. Now he's back in school. So when the murders start happening, Brian is the prime suspect by everybody's looking at him sideways. And Brian is kind of creepy. He's always watching from afar and from obscured places like behind bushes or behind a water cooler, which is quite funny. The kids break into, because Paul has the keys for the office, and Dwight and these two other friends want to sneak in to check the files on Brian, and she relents and goes with them. And they're getting water out of the water fountain, and behind it you can see this phase, and the camera, it's Brian. He's hiding there staring at him. It's just bizarre. It comes off as silly and funny, actually. And pretty much people start dying at the school. And all the way, Roddy McDowall, who's a legend, I mean, obviously, he was just coming off of Fright Night Part 2 the year before, and he's no stranger to horror. He did Fright Night Part 1. He was coming off of Overboard in 87. Long career, Planet of the Apes going forward. You check out his, sadly the man's no longer with us, but ton of credits. So it's always nice to see Roddy McDowall here. And he's playing like a sleazy principal, like he's totally checking out Paula at every turn, and he's definitely creeping on her. It's definitely a performance from Roddy McDowall we weren't used to getting, honestly, because he's definitely a creepy old dude that's principal at the school. Plus, we got the seemingly maybe psychotic janitor that's going around saying shit to the kids. So they definitely throw red herring at you after red herring at you as the bodies pile up. But at the end of the film, just to get through the kind of plot here a little bit, we find out that it's Brian. He gives his monologue, and it's basically Dwight and Paula against Brian, and Brian ends up an axe buried in his head, and that's the end of the film. What to like about this film? Well, the cast is pretty good. Everybody here does pretty well what they're given. Obviously, Roddy McDowall's a legend. Mark Mullins, great here for what he's given to do. He's not in the film a whole lot because he gets shot with an arrow while he's hunting. So he basically spends his time in this swamp, and we don't see him again. Really, he's not with Paula again until right at the end of the film. The kills are okay. There's some cool makeup effects here. They're basically aftermath shots, especially the end when they dispatch of Brian with the axe in him. That is pretty cool, but they don't show it happening. They show the aftermath of it, but that's good enough. So some of the effects here are not too bad for what I'm assuming it was a pretty low budget movie, because like I said, this didn't get a theatrical release. There's some funny parts in here. There definitely was on purpose, and with this film, I could tell they were going for maybe like a horror kind of a little bit of high school comedy type deal. And again, the red herring thing, they're throwing red herrings at you to make you think it might be Dwight or the custodian or maybe even the principal at one point. But pretty much who you think it is and who everybody else in the film thinks it is, Brian, that's who ends up being the killer. So it's not much of a mystery here. They're trying to throw you off, but it's pretty obvious it's Brian. The red herring thing really doesn't work here, but they're trying their best. They're trying their best to throw you off, but it doesn't really work here. Positives are the cast ain't bad here, and you can see why Brad Pitt went on and had the career he did, even in this early film. At the end of the day, though, this isn't the best slasher film. It's okay. I've been saying it a lot lately. You could have a good time with it. I know it didn't get a big release, so I don't know how many of you out there even heard of this film or have seen it. I remember renting this from the video store way back when in the 90s from Broad Street Video in Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. But that's probably the last time I've seen this is the 90s. So when I saw it come out, I picked it up. And it's actually a pretty good Blu-ray, though. I will give MVD. They do a good job. It's a good transfer. There's an interview here with Joel Sholin. And there's an interview on here with Donovan Leck. He's on here, too. And they're about 20 minutes each. So it's definitely, if you're a fan of this film or you're interested, it's definitely worth picking up. They did a nice job with this release that they just came out with. Joel Sholin, just going to some trivia here. Again, this came towards the end of the slasher boom. As we got into the 90s, as we all know, the slasher film kind of petered out. I mean, we still have Friday the 13th coming out, and Friday Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6 came out, and then Halloween's tried to come back. But slashers, until Scream came out in 96, slashers were on the downhill slope. Jill Sholin, and I already told you, her and Brad Pitt met on this film. They would get engaged later on for a short period. Jill Sholin didn't want to do this film. It's on the interview on here, right from her mouth. She didn't like the script. She wasn't interested in it, but her agents convinced her to take the film. But she had no interest in doing this at first, so she took some convincing to do it. This movie was actually shot in 1987, but didn't see a release until 1989. So basically, it sat in a shelf for 2 years. The gentleman who wrote this film, Steven Slavkin, actually went on to do Salute Your Shorts in 1991 for Nickelodeon. So that's what he went to do after this. So I know a lot of people like that show if they remember it from their childhood. And this film was shot in 4 weeks. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here with these ratings lately. I had a rudimentary good time with it. It's a film you can sit down and have a good time with. The performances aren't bad. The whole, I knew who the killer was before they reveal at the end. It was quite obvious, even though they're throwing red herring after red herring at you. Again, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's not bad. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. Not the worst slasher movie, certainly. It's not the worst slasher movie I've seen in this review series. But it's not top tier slasher film. It's not up there with Halloween or The Prowler or stuff like that. But you can have a good time with this film. And this is a good addition from MVD. So if you like this film, it's definitely worth the purchase. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for Cutting Class. If you've ever seen it or even heard of this film, leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with some more videos, but until next time, bye.